Okay, I have the time as 7 o'clock. I'll call to order this meeting of the Urbana City Council Committee of the Whole. First item of business is approval of minutes. Oh, yep, you're right, thank you. It's been a while. Could we have a roll call, please?
Miss Wu,
Here.
Mr. Evans,
Here.
Miss Hersey, Miss Colasetti,
Here.
Miss Bishop,
Here.
Miss Wilkin,
Here.
Mr. Quisenberry,
Here.
Mayor Marlin.
Here.
Thank you. Now we have approval of the minutes from 6/5/23. If we have a motion. Thank you. Moved by Mary Alice.
I'll second.
Thank you. Seconded by Jaya. Any discussion or corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those minutes are approved. Next is additions to the agenda. Do we have any additions or changes? Okay, seeing none, our next item is presentations and public input. No scheduled presentations, so we'll go to public input. If you'd like to address the committee of the whole, you can step to this microphone and you'd have 5 minutes. And seeing none, we'll go to staff report. Are there any reports from staff? Yes, Mayor Marlin.
Do have one announcement, and that on August 26th, there will be a grand opening at Namkin Nutrition, which is located on South Philo Road in the Pines, 2740 South Philo Road. This is a new business. They originated in Decatur. They have now a location here in Urbana, and they offer nutritious to-go meals and also some items in the store to purchase. And they are run by owned and operated by registered and licensed dietitians. So that, again, that's 8 to 4 on Saturday, August 26th.
Thank you. And next is new business. Our first item is ordinance number 2023-08-028, an ordinance approving a major variance, front yard encroachment at 410 North Lincoln Avenue, ZBA 2023, MAJ 02.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for having us.
Marcus, can you just make sure that mic's on and you can
Yes,
pull it
no.
closer?
Scoot it up a little. This is a request by Tim Chow, owner of Bake Lab Cafe, on behalf of GSA Group, which is the owner of Gather Guest Suites, to reduce a portion of the required front yard along Lincoln Avenue from 15 feet to 7 feet 8 inches for a length of 33 feet along the front of the building's west entrance at 410 North Lincoln Avenue in the B3 General Business Zoning District. The property is a corner lot at North Lincoln and West University Avenues. The property has required front yards of 15 feet on both of its frontages. Bake Lab Cafe has been providing outdoor seating at its entrance along North Lincoln Avenue since the cafe opened in 2021 using tables and chairs. In response to customer requests to provide shelter for the seating area, Mr. Chow had 2 pergolas installed earlier this summer, creating the encroachment in the required front yard, which requires the requested variance. That's because tables and chairs aren't considered an encroachment in a front yard, but the pergolas as a structure would be considered an encroachment as a structure in the front yard. The specific location of the outdoor dining area and the requested variance are shown by the yellow block on the location map here. This is looking an aerial provided by Eagle View, looking eastward down onto the west side of Gather Suites. This is the Lincoln Avenue frontage here, and then this roughly 33-foot section of it. This is the only portion where the variance is being requested for the required front yard. This is a little zoom in of this. This is a 2021 photo of when they were simply using tables and chairs to provide outdoor seating along Lincoln Avenue outside their entrance. They've also got a little pass-through window here where people can stay outside, order, get their food, sit outside. But you can see the proximity of the traffic there along Lincoln Avenue. This is looking northward, up the sidewalk to where the pergola sits currently, and the entrance into Gather Suites and the coffee shop. The property line is actually down here on the west side of the sidewalk. There's an agreement between the city and Gather Suites to actually have the sidewalk on private property. And the pergola would not encroach into the sidewalk walking area. This is looking eastward at the west side of the building and the pergolas. And again, looking southeastward a little closer up. Okay, this is the site plan that was submitted with the application. North is to your right. The area of the variance is this 33 by 7 foot 8 4-inch block is where the encroachment is currently, and they would like the variance to make that legally conforming. And then the next slide is a little, here is the encroachment into the setback as laid out and shown on the submitted site plan. More background and site details are available in the staff report that was just handed out today, but you also had the meeting minutes from the ZBA meeting. Those were included in the packet. Staff did publish a legal notice, sent letters to neighboring property owners, and posted a public hearing sign on the property. Staff received no correspondence regarding the variance request, and one nearby resident spoke in favor of the request at the public hearing. That commentary is in the ZBA minutes. The Zoning Board of Appeals held a public hearing on this request on July 19th. The board agreed with the findings of fact in the staff report, including that the special circumstances and practical difficulty for this parcel are that the existing cafe use is more common in zoning districts that do not require minimum yards to separate the structure from neighboring users. The request meets all 6 of the variance criteria, according to the staff analysis, which weighs heavily in favor of granting the requested variance. The full staff findings are available in the staff report, and the public hearing minute summarizes them, and those are in Exhibit B. The Zoning Board of Appeals voted unanimously to recommend that City Council approve the requested major variance based on the findings, with one condition, that the structures generally conform to the site plan submitted in the application. That's the one we looked at today. And staff concur with this recommendation. That's the end of my staff report. I'm happy to answer questions. Mr. Chow is available here also to answer questions if you like.
Thank you. Questions? Go Mary Alice first.
I was wondering if there was a rendering of what this is going to look like once it's done. You had because there's going to be covering, right? That's one of the main problems here, is that there's no cover. So is this
Correct.
just going to be, this wooden part going to be covered?
I'll let Mr. Chow give any details, but yes, basically it would be these pergolas with a covering on the top. They will require getting a building permit, since they're going to be a structure, so they will go through the building permit process and, be inspected by city staff and make sure they meet building code.
Okay, and you had already said it, but I just want to confirm, this says that the structures generally conform to the site plan, so if this is approved, it's not that they could then decide, we want to have a permanent outdoor, we're going to extend the
Right.
lab, right? So
Correct.
it's just for this particular purpose?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
James?
Yeah, thank you for the report. I'm generally supportive of this. I do have I think I'm going to ask the same question that I saw was asked at the Zoning Board of Appeals by Mr. Cho, which is, if we do something like this again, how do we make sure that a building that we knew was going to be built with a cafe that was going to have seating in front of it conforms when it's built, as opposed to having to come back and do something special in the future?
I think we would try and have more detailed discussions. You know, at this time, when they were putting through the Gather special use permit, they knew there was going to be a cafe somewhere in the building. They didn't necessarily know that it would be here, and that they were going to do outdoor dining. I think in that case, we would say, is there anything you want to do here that would require, you know, additional permitting? And then at the time, if it was a planned unit development, then they could request a waiver for that, you know, decreased encroachment or that decreased required yard. If it wasn't a planned unit development, then they would probably apply for the required permit at the time.
Okay, so the idea is that this cafe could have been like on the backside facing the parking lot, or
Correct.
not on the street frontage like it is here.
Correct.
I
Or it
just
could
think
have
this
been
is
on-
important.
On the roof.
Yeah, I think it's important because I see something similar happening with the property the school district offices were on, the property on Illinois, south of Illinois Street, when we start talking about potential development plans for that. I just want it to be captured because this makes a lot of sense, and it would have made a lot of sense from the beginning. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Questions, Chris?
Minor point, is the, what is it called, a pergola? Is it going to be left natural wood, or is it going to be painted, or any color?
I think I'll leave that up
Okay.
to Mr. Chow.
It's just a minor
Sure.
point, just curious.
Yes.
Other questions? I had one or two. So this structure is already out of compliance with or without a roof, is that correct? So the roof
That's correct.
doesn't really matter in this case?
Correct.
Okay. And then I was also just curious how this came about. Did the applicant just out of good spirit and honesty come by, or is there some kind of a, hey, by the way, this isn't allowed, but this is how it could be? I was just curious how this came about and kind of what that system is, if somebody has something that's out of compliance, or is
Our-
it on
Our
them? or-
building official noted it on their rounds, and they asked planning staff, hey, did you know this was happening? And we said no. And so we got in contact with Mr. Chow and said, we're going to look into this. We're going to see if this is an allowed encroachment, or if this is an encroachment that, because the zoning ordinance has like 12 things that are allowed to encroach into a required yard. Accessory structures are not one of those. So we checked into it, saw if there was any existing allowances for this sort of thing, saw that there were not, and said, you'll need to get a major variance because it's more than 25% of an encroachment into the required yard. And he said, fine, sorry that we did it without asking. And so we just, we said you can continue using it until it goes through the permitting, the variance process. And, you know, he filed the application in a timely fashion, so that was okay with us.
Thank you. Other questions? I was wondering if the applicant, if you would like to address any of the questions that have been asked. Yeah, you can come up to this microphone, if you can help and turn it on, please. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, so I think Marcus did a good job to show like everything here. I think generally we can like kind of separate into two issues going on. One is, I think the core what we're experiencing is that it turns out B3 zoning and B4 zoning are very different on the frontage of the requirements of setbacks. I guess that after pandemics, that we're seeing businesses are very different now, like how they do it, you know, in terms of outdoor seating aspect. And it's hard to anticipate, you know, at the beginning when we have the outdoor seating, there was no coverage. It was very simple, just have the tables and chairs. But it is a busy street, and we got a lot of requests. It was like, hey, can you have some sort of privacy fence or even covering for the west, especially for the west sun. And so, be honest, at the time, we are not aware between the difference of B3 and B4. And actually, I thought this could be a good opportunity, use us as a case study for the future businesses in Urbana, because I think that if everyone wants to do outdoor seating, then everyone needs to apply for a variance. That would take a long time from situation like us. So we would like, if we could be the pioneer of these and, go through the process on here. And we, be honest, that we didn't really understand, like when we have the outdoor seating and when we have the planter, which we have a lot of herbs and flowers. Some of them we even use in our productions. It's actually a very, I think it fit into the neighborhood vibe and the character of the neighborhood. And actually, we do increase foot traffic too, by the way. And a lot of people give us comments on how beautiful, and they want to have a cover now. We're just waiting. And so I think, compared to the downtown Urbanas, I think more like the central business districts, which have a lot of incentives, when they build a structure like those. To us, that we pay for everything, and we spend the time and go through. It took us quite a bit, a couple months, to do it. So it seems like it makes sense, to have something here that's for everyone to use, and then also conform with the rules here. Yeah, and so.
Thank you for the background on that, addressing that question. I think the other one, just quickly, the other question for you was if you plan to paint the wood or not. If you want that one
So
answered.
the wood itself, I think we might stain the wood to color match it. And then for the cover wise, also for the material is actually breathable sunshades. So it's very lightweight. It's not like a canopy. And then we're gonna take down the sunshades in the winter time. So the structure, we're planning on having just structure there, but the cover will be off on there.
Thank you. Any last call for questions? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'd be happy to entertain a motion.
I'll move ordinance number 2023-08-028, an ordinance approving a major variance front yard encroachment at 410 North Lincoln Avenue, ZBA 2023-MAJ-02, on to City Council for approval on the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Chandra, seconded by James for approval on the consent agenda. Is there discussion? Yes, Mayor Alice?
I just want to say there was, some of the neighborhood was nervous about this building when it came up. And so I was very pleased to see that one of the comments was from a neighbor who was very strongly in support of this. So it's nice to see that turning the tide of that. And so hopefully that nervousness is being abated. So I am in support of this. I just wanted to comment about how important it is for the neighborhood, and nice that somebody had spoken up about it.
Great. Other discussion? I just have a quick one. Chandra, would you mind taking the chair?
Sure, the chair recognizes Grace.
Thank you. Yes, I'm in support of this. I think it doesn't encroach on the sidewalk, so that makes sense. And I'm glad we've had the conversation about how to avoid this in the future. And I think it looks great because these are real photos, right? They look like renderings. It's just like so clean, and your planters and things. So yeah, looks great. Thanks for doing business in Urbana, and thank you to staff for addressing this, and thank you for working with us on it. I'm glad that we were able to figure it out and resolve this. So thank you all. I'll take chair back.
Oh, yeah, and I give the chair back.
Thank you. All right, and with that, I think we're ready for a roll call vote, please.
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Colasetti,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
Yes.
Ms. Wilkin,
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry.
Yes.
And that passes. Thank you all. Next item is ordinance number 2023-08-029, an ordinance amending Urbana City Code, Chapter 24, Article 6, Urbana Public Television Commission. Did I get-
I'll just tee this up by saying that I submitted a memo with it and happy to answer questions about the background to this.
Thank you. Questions? I have some. Section 1, it looks like, says that it repeals Chapter 24, this Article 6, Sections 24 through 51. No, Sections 24 through... Oh, okay, 151. Okay, so Chapter 24, Section 151 to Section 156, right? Thank you, because I was looking for a clarification. I didn't know if those were the sections, because then Section 2 is just amending Section 150, right? So that is staying the same, we're just amending the end of it, and then we're getting rid of 151 through 156, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Yes, Mary Alice?
I guess for the public's going to want to know, we've had a conversation about the PEG channels that haven't been used and what UPTV will be doing. I realize that this is the commission, but I just want to assure people that the recordings of the meetings that we do and rebroadcasting of those, nothing will change. So in terms of access to government meetings, is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. You're right.
Okay, all right. So this really is removing the complaint mechanism. So I assume if somebody has a complaint about something, they can contact the city administrator, sorry, Carol, and she will bring in the relevant people. And then there was one other piece that this.
Right. And specifically, the commission was for complaints from public access members who felt that they were not getting their content shown or not getting their content made. So as I noted in the memo, the only complaints we've actually received are from viewers
Right.
about the content that we're showing. So there was a very narrow focus for what complaints were brought to the commission. And as I noted in my 10 years at the city, there haven't been any.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then we'd entertain a motion.
I will move ordinance number 2023-08-029, an ordinance amending Urbana City Code, Chapter 24, Article 6, Urbana Public Television Commission, to the consent agenda at the next city council meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you. Moved by Mary Alice, seconded by Jaya for approval on the consent agenda. Any discussion? Yes, Chris?
Yeah, I just kind of want to say I'm going to miss the original content that was provided. I was one of the weird people that actually watched that stuff. I liked The Truth Be Told by Sean Williams. I liked the Underwoods being on the programming. I liked even The Psychotic Comedian. I liked Democracy Now! I liked all that stuff, and I'm going to miss it. And I don't doubt that there was no demand after the pandemic, and that's just the way it went. So I'm just going to miss it, is all.
Yes, James?
I want to echo the sentiment that we're losing something here in this process, but I think it bears talking about briefly, since we had some discussions about this in 2x2s and should be shared more broadly with the public. The landscape certainly changed over the last 5 years as far as the ability to get content to people and the ways to get it. It's not perfect. The other thing that's happened over the years that is not a good thing in my mind, that's undermined the funding process here, is that the city has lost some control over how we collect fees associated with cable content being delivered. The historic cable company was built into it, but new things like AT&T's fiber, they got a pass from the state, and they did not need to come to the city and pay a franchise fee. And so the content that's getting out to all different places, even through more traditional models like i3 and AT&T, are not contributing into the capacity to have this kind of capability anymore, and that undermines it. So the combination of lower funding, lots of paths now to share messages and content has put us kind of in this position. That doesn't mean I'm not sad about the fact that the local generated content isn't there, and we don't have to have some group to talk about whether it's being made appropriately or being accessed appropriately. So I will support this, but just want to recognize those components.
Any other discussion? Okay, and we will take a roll call vote.
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Colacetti,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
Yes.
Ms. Wilkin,
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry.
Yes.
And that passes. Thank you all. Next item is ordinance number 2023-08-030, an ordinance amending Urbana City Code, Chapter 3, Section 3-43, increasing the number of Class A liquor licenses for Urbana Boulders, LLC, DBA Urbana Boulders, 1502 and a half Cunningham Avenue, Urbana, Illinois.
Yes, this is an application for a liquor license from Urbana Boulders. The Class A would be for beer and wine only. And yes, you may do a double take when you read who the applicant is and you're thinking about a liquor license for an indoor climbing facility. We met with the owner. They have plans, and this was actually largely in response to requests from their clients who enjoyed being at the facility so much that they wanted to stay there afterwards, socialize, have a beverage, and it's becoming more than just a climbing facility. They also have plans to, if you remember, expand quite a bit. So anyway, this is a request for a liquor license for Class A.
Thank you. James?
I have a quick question and then an observation. And I guess my question is, do we have any other fitness facilities in Urbana that has a liquor license?
At this point, no.
Because this is becoming a thing, so I would not be surprised to see any fitness facility come to us and ask for this. They come and work out and then have a drink at a bar in the fitness facility afterwards. So the reason why this one is catching my eye, and I want to know how carefully we looked at this. I'm familiar with this facility because of the young people I know that go there. It does have a high amount of youth participation. So I'm really curious in how a facility that's not really a bar is a common place for young people to gather, what their plan is for managing that situation, because they're not bartenders, right? They're fitness instructors. They're
Well, if they're serving alcohol, they'll need to meet all the requirements for having.
But did they talk to you about
Yeah,
that when they
yeah.
applied it?
They
Okay.
had a plan for how they'll separate the two. They'll do some remodeling inside to segregate the bar area. And their target is really not young people, although some young folks do go there, but their expansion is going to be focused more on older climbers. They will have to have all the credentials that any other establishment serving alcohol will have.
Okay, it just
Checking ideas.
raises the
checking
concern a
ideas.
little bit for me because of that. It'd be like if I saw it like Elevate, the place over in Champaign was getting a liquor license, because I know that's highly young people focused. And this one less so. I know,
Yes.
I know a lot of adults utilize this, but it just feels like it needs a little closer scrutiny.
Chandra?
Did they, you said you went there and did a walkthrough. Did they show you like?
They met with us.
Oh, they met with you. Okay. I would be curious as to what that remodeling and the bar area would look like. I feel like I'm just imagining how like in some places they have the gaming area where it's just like a little tape on the floor that says over 21 only. Like I mean, if there's a lot of youth there, I would want it to be sort of off the main area. Maybe even sort of roped off or partitioned off in some sort of way.
Other questions? Yes, Mary Alice?
If I'm remembering correctly, in order to serve alcohol under some of these licenses requires additional training by the servers.
They all have to have their Bassett.
all
Anyone
have to have
serving
their Bassett.
alcohol has to be 21 or older. They have to be Bassett trained.
Okay.
They have to be also approved by the state as well. So this is a liquor license like any other.
Okay. Thank you.
Another question also, Diane. Are we, as the city, kind of have a protective layer here with issuing the license? I imagine that the license holder who's issuing the alcohol is the one we hold responsible for, like you said, checking IDs and any liability, just like if they overserved and someone drove and got in a car accident, or at the Axe bar that we have, if someone's drinking too much and has an accident with an axe, or here, if someone's drinking too much and falls off a boulder, that company is the one responsible for
Absolutely.
avoiding and taking on that responsibility.
One of the other requirements for any liquor license is a certificate of insurance. So yes,
And as you said, that they adhere to those same things of not over-serving and that they're in charge
Absolutely.
of monitoring all that.
absolutely. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Does that happen to be the applicants in the audience? No? Okay. We don't have them here. Any others? Would entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'm not going to put it on the consent agenda in case there are additional questions that people have. So I'll move ordinance number 2023-08030, an ordinance amending Urbana City Code Chapter 3, Section 3-43, increasing the number of Class A liquor licenses for Urbana Boulders, LLC, Business Urbana Boulders, 1502 and a half Cunningham Avenue in Urbana, Illinois, to City Council with a recommendation for approval.
I'll second.
Thank you. With that moved by Mary Alice, seconded by Chandra for the regular agenda, recommendation for approval. Any discussion? Yes, Diane?
I would say we could ask the owners to come to the council meeting next week to address any questions you have. And I'll ask them also for hopefully a schematic of how they want to arrange that.
Thank you. Yes, that'd be helpful. Other discussion? Okay, could we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Colasetti,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
Yes.
Ms. Wilkin,
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry.
Yes.
Thank you. That item passes. And next is resolution number 2023-08-78R, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement concerning geographic information system services from Public Works.
Good evening, council. I don't have a bunch to present on this. We've been in a agreement with the consortium for over 20 years now. Some of this is just kind of formalizing things that have kind of happened over the years. They've started hosting data for us. They've done some server management stuff for us, kind of to help facilitate needs outside of what we can handle ourselves with our current staff. And then the third item that's really formalized in this agreement is just kind of on-call GIS services. So we have one GIS specialist staff now. They've got a slew of staff with all kinds of different talent and skills. And sometimes with our single staff member, we're not able to ramp up time sensitivity things, and they have availability to help us with that, but we need an agreement to kind of formalize compensating them for that time. So it's really just kind of giving us the opportunity to reach out to the consortium first before we would be going to a consultant for on-call GIS services Another thing that you approved in the budget this year was some money for on-call services for consultants. We still intend to pursue that as well because I think our needs are outside of this, but this allows us to kind of coordinate with the consortium first. They're more familiar with our data. Sometimes they're able to pick something up and just get it done very quickly for us when we cannot and we have time-sensitive needs. So those are kind of the three prongs of this. Some of it has just kind of grown over time because their capabilities have grown and our needs have grown outside of what we've staffed internally, so.
Thank you. Questions for Tim? Yes, Mary Alice?
So you just mentioned that we've been part of this group for quite a while, and I know it's a consortium amongst a lot of the local governments. What have we been currently paying?
Well, there's a few different things we pay for. So annually, we pay a charge as a consortium member for them to manage regional data that they're hosting for us, U of I, Mahomet, Champaign, obviously all of those. And I think that cost is just under 40 grand a year that we're paying for them to do that. And then we've got a couple other things that we've done through this same relationship with the consortium. We've got an IGA to share essentially a surveying base station cost that all the entities kick in on that. We've got another cost share IGA with them where all of the other regional people are paying. Essentially, it's kind of like intermediate costs where we have to pay for 5 years of the base station cost, or we have to pay for 5 years of orthophotography where we're updating our aerials every 3 years. Those are both in the vicinity of less than 5 grand for each of those. The data hosting, the server management, I think both of those collectively are less than 5 grand a year that we're paying now for those things. And then the GIS on-call services is kind of TBD, but I suspect it's not going to be a substantial portion because their bandwidth is still limited. They still have to man all the regional resources. They get requests like this from other entities that are within the consortium that are paying them kind of on-call service costs as well. So I would speculate that we would be spending less than $10,000 a year in total for all of this stuff.
So I guess the data hosting and the server and so forth, have we not been paying for that? Or if I
No.
thought we were paying for the,
We have been. Our purchasing policy, as long as we're less than $5,000, we can purchase things less than $5,000 without necessarily having formal contractual agreements and things like that. Some of that has just come through a necessity of just the technology has grown in a way that it made more sense for them to host some of that stuff at their site. Sanford could probably give you a better detailed answer on that because he's been kind of the backbone of working those things out that those, like the data hosting and the server management of things that IT is kind of outsourced to the consortium. And then the GIS kind of all-call services is something that Public Works would be more outsourcing to them.
so this isn't requiring new funds, is what I'm hearing you say.
Nope, it's all IT's budget has been paying for the data hosting, the server management.
All right.
We have an operations line within our engineering line that would pay for some on-call services for this type of stuff.
Okay,
No new funds.
thank you.
Chandra?
Is this IGA for 1 year? Is this an annual?
It's essentially the way it's written is it's for a year term and it renews automatically we have like a 30-day termination clause because we've got, I think, 3 or 4 of these other ones with them where they're kind of perpetual unless everybody says we're out of this thing. So like every 5 years, our base station agreement, we at least have a discussion about it to talk about is there any way for us to terminate this? And something like this, because it could be, it could be that we spend $0 with them in some year. It just gives us the opportunity to if we need to. In some years, we may spend more or less. It's kind of like a buffer for what our staffing capabilities are with our local folks that know our stuff.
Okay, thank you.
James?
Yeah, I was going to dig into a little bit the costs on the IT side, but as you said, Sanford's not here to answer that question. I do want to point out to council on the table of GIS services. So GIS technical service is pretty special purpose. So that granted its special purpose, and these are hourly rates. So granted, they've got some overhead loaded into them, but the programmer that's listed here, that's a $120,000 a year programmer that they're billing at $60 an hour. And so while it may not be something that we'd ever be doing in-house, I think as we look at our technology capabilities, we have to look at what we're paying our technology staff to do things and compare it to what we're willing to pay and outsourcing for it, right? There's overhead with that. It's special, special services, I know this. I knew this from when I was on the county board, because we saw this from the county's version of this.
Yep.
But I mean, we're not really competitive in the IT space for the salaries we pay, and this is here. This is Champaign County rates for those kinds of capabilities. So we just need to be aware of that as we go forward, not just in this specific area, but in all areas where we're needing IT services. Because this is where you end up if you have to outsource everything.
Yeah, and just to come off of that, the GIS, the hourly rates you see here, this versus a private consultant, these are extremely affordable in comparison to if we have to hire our own consultant to do this. This is probably a third of the cost of what they're going to charge us. So best situation for us is do whatever we can with our staff. Second best is consortium. Third best is consultant. And I think we have a need to have a justification for all three of those things, at least for some spell of term. You know, as we get some things built up and stuff, a lot of those consulting costs, I think, shrink down as we get some things built out. So,
Questions? I have just two. Can you clarify the cost? So this is the 1,000 some a year for the data housing and the 3,000 some a year for that server administration and management, plus some consulting fees that would be hourly if we need them. Is that right?
correct.
Okay.
Historically, since I've been here, I bet we haven't spent more than a couple $1,000s on that type of stuff, but it's so few and far between. I mean, until August of last year, we had no GIS staff. So if somebody couldn't figure it out in-house, we were calling them and praying they would help us. So,
And then I'm wondering if you could explain briefly the value that this GIS service has to the city. How do you use this on a practical sense?
I read some quote today, and I wish I could remember it now, but GIS's capabilities are limited by the people's imaginations of building it. So it is, for public works, it is the end-all tool for us. It's going to help inform. It's effectively geospatial data management. So rather than us trying to go and search through a bunch of paper files, we have a map that shows people where the bad areas are, where the good areas are, where we should be spending our money, and you can filter all these different things, and that's what we're trying to work to build out now. To me, it's probably one of the most valuable tools we have as a city for a public works person. So.
And that's, so like, because you've been working on the asset management plans and you showed us your really cool maps of the street conditions and sidewalks and stuff. Is that already all on a GIS system?
Yes, we have some things. It's kind of taking some, historical things and kind of bring them up to date so that we are always continually updating live versions. Rather than having a standalone map here that 10 different people copied and have made 10 different edits to. The idea is just doing better at our data management with some of this stuff now. We have a lot of data, but it's harnessing that stuff, and we have a lot still to collect. I mean, we'll talk about it in the swamp in a little bit, but we got 145 miles of storm sewer. Trying to harness that in a way that we can look at the whole system in a snapshot is challenging to get all that data in one place. So that's what we're trying to do now, is kind of getting all of that stuff so that it's more digestible for people.
Thank you.
Oh.
Let's call for questions, or we'd take a motion.
I'll move approval of resolution number 2023-08-078R, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement concerning geographic information system services onto City Council for approval on the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Chandra, seconded by Mary Alice for approval on the consent agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is a passed resolution. And our last item under new business is ordinance number 2023-08-31, an ordinance amending section 24-172 of the Urbana City Code and the schedule of fees pertaining to the stormwater utility fee.
Good evening again. Just a brief introduction of some of the the key folks that have been working on this. Carmen Franks, Assistant City Engineer. I know you all have seen her a couple times. Tim Sumner with CMT is our project manager, the consultant that's been on this thing for a couple years now with us. High level, this is kind of the culmination of what's coming out of our stormwater asset management plan. And I'll let Carmen kind of go into some of those details. We've shared some of these with you to date, and we just kind of want to give a brief overview for you and the public so they can kind of see everything that's happened that's led to kind of where we're ending up now with this stormwater utility fee recommendation. Take it away, Carmen.
Thank you, Tim. Good evening, everyone. Today I'm going to present to
I'm sorry,
you-
Carmen, you can scoot that microphone. You can move the whole thing closer to you, nice and loud in it. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, so today we're going to start with proposed ordinance, so what you've seen in your packet already. This has the stormwater utility fee adjustment and one other aspect of change to the stormwater utility fee. We're going to talk about the existing system and the needs that we have, our stormwater asset management program, the potential programs that this project has come up with. What are those program costs, and what is the community feedback and our final staff recommendation? So I want to point out, even though community feedback is at the end of this list and it's at the end of the presentation, it was considered throughout all of this, and it was a strong factor in our recommendation. So the proposed ordinance you'll see in your packet is a change to the utility fee rate. So it's currently at $5.82 per month, and we're proposing that it goes up in 2024 to $8 per month. And the other aspect of this is to allow the city to bill residential properties the same way that we bill non-residential properties. It doesn't force us to do that. The way that this is written is that once we are prepared to do so, and we have the maps in GIS, as Tim has just talked about, all ready to go, then we can do that. So the rest of this presentation is really a justification for these two items, mostly the fee increase. So what's our background? What are our needs? Why are we here? So the Stormwater Asset Management Plan started as the Stormwater Master Plan, and it started in 2018. It came out of the 2011 feasibility study that was put together to justify the stormwater utility fee and program. So out of this project, I should point out that the team that has been working on this is on the slide. So it's been the City of Urbana obviously leading it, and CMT as our primary consultant with sub-consultants. Ref Tallis, who's a financial, they did the financial analysis, and Images, marketing consultant. So we've all been working on this project. It was started in 2018, kind of put on hold with the pandemic and some staff changes, and it reinitiated last year. So the goals were to document our system needs, to provide a strategy to manage the system, and to quantify the costs of the system. So basically what we've all determined, the team has determined, is that we don't have adequate funds to manage our system. And that's why we're here today, to increase the fee so that we can have adequate funds for managing our stormwater system. So what is currently in our stormwater program? For simplicity, the slide notes just a few things in each of these three major categories. And these are the major categories that we've broken out the proposed programs or alternative programs later on in the presentation. So our Illinois EPA permit compliance, this is to comply with a permit that we have with Illinois EPA because we are a separated storm sewer system. So just to clarify, this is all about storm sewers. So this is the water in our sewers that comes from rainwater, not from wastewater, not drinking water, just stormwater. So as a separated storm sewer system, we are separated from wastewater. We have to meet this MS4 permit requirements, just like all other separated storm sewer systems in the state of Illinois. We've got a large operations and maintenance component here, which we refer to later on as system maintenance and repairs. It includes activities like cleaning and televising our sewers, and doing repairs as needed, and street sweeping to maintain water quality. We also have a capital construction component to that. So that includes things like pipelining, concept plans and studies, engineering designs, and construction of projects. Okay, so going back to the Stormwater Asset Management Plan, where did it start? We started with data gathering. So what do we have in our stormwater system? What is all of that worth, and what condition is our infrastructure in? So what do we have? We have approximately 145 miles of storm sewer pipe. So again, these are just the pipes that convey stormwater or rainwater. It does not include wastewater or drinking water. We have 8,300 structures, so those are our curb inlets and manholes that connect those pipes. We have a Vine Street pumping station that's at the rail crossing on Vine Street. We have 2 small rain gardens, 4 stormwater detention basins, 1 storm screen that captures trash and large debris, and 2 streams and 2 drainage ditches. And the project analysis has put together a cost for all of this. So if everything were to be replaced at 2022 dollars, it would be $344 million to replace all of this. Everything on the outside of this circle, these are just tools to manage our information on the system and tools that were used for the project to gather all this information. So what condition are our assets in? Basically, for most of our system, we don't know. So only 30% or less than 30% of our storm sewers have been inspected in the last 10 years. So I've got around 28% have been inspected in the last 10 years. And since 1998, our records show, so going back 25 years, that only around 36% of our pipes have been inspected. So without this condition information from televised inspections, the next best thing we use is age. And we don't have strong records of the age of all of our pipes either, unless they've been installed in recent years. So what was done was an estimate was put together for the age of our system. And this is based on the age of our neighborhoods. So it assumes that our assets were put into the ground when the neighborhoods were built. So from this estimate, we've discovered that around 30% of our pipe system is about 100 years, or sorry, about 120 years old. So this is exceeding the expected lifespan of these pipes. So what is needed for our system? We need that condition information that I just mentioned was missing. So we need to televise, inspect around 75 miles of storm sewer system in the next 5 years. So we need to do this so we can have a better understanding of the risks of failure of our system, so we know what their conditions are, and we can be able to prioritize the repairs and replacements proactively instead of just doing repairs on a reactive basis. So we also need to complete a complete data set of information on our storm sewer system. So we need things like elevations and pipe sizes so that we can model the system and we can know if our capacity is adequate. We're going to see larger and more intense storm events in the future, and we want to know that our pipes can adequately handle that. So, how can we address all of these needs? So this brings us to our program changes and our proposed programs. So program 1 is just the current program. This is what was shown on the previous slide. This is the status quo. So basically, as discussed earlier, we're maintaining permit compliance with Illinois EPA. We have our annual operations and maintenance activities. However, I will point out that these are done on a greater than 15-year cycle for the entire system. Like I said, it was over 25 years, and we had only have records of about 36% of our system. I want to note also that our 2011 feasibility study for the stormwater utility recommended moving to a 7 to 8 year cycle. But like I said, our records have shown we've only done a small percentage in 25 years' time. So we also have capital construction projects that we are doing, but the cost of all of this is actually greater than the revenue that we are currently bringing in for our program. So the cost of this is about $1.9 million. And our revenue that we're bringing in from the fee is around $1.7 million. So more on the fee later. But I want to point out that programs 2, 3, and 4 are very similar to the different key aspects here of the current program. So we're expanding upon the permit compliance for Program 2, operations and maintenance for Program 3, and capital construction or rehab and replacement projects for Program 4. So Program 2, we know that we have an updated MS4 permit coming out. It was supposed to come out in 2021, but it's been delayed by Illinois EPA for a long time now, but it should be coming out, the last we heard was by the end of the calendar year. So we have some expected new requirements as a part of that updated permit, but these are largely, and I've included some of the key, kind of the most expensive of those activities that would be needed for that. This isn't all of them, just some examples are shown on the slide. But really what it means is that it will impact us administratively. We'll need to set aside more staff time for inspections and program evaluations and reporting back to the EPA. For more information, our annual reports are provided on our website there. Program 3, we're calling System Maintenance and Repair. This is related to our operations and maintenance. This includes increased frequency of the cleaning and televising of our pipes. So I said we're doing, our cycles now are over 15 years, maybe even more like 25 years to get the entire system televised. And what's recommended from professionals in the industry like CMT and others is that we get onto a 10-year cycle for the entire system. And like I said before, the 2011 utility fee feasibility assessment recommended a 7 to 8 year cycle. So this isn't even as conservative as what was put out over 10 years ago. Repairs to our sewer pipes. This is just continuing the repairs that we're already doing and planning for increased maintenance costs as the system ages. Continuing to do these reactive repairs to prevent failures. And then finally, data collection. Like I said, we're missing a lot of data on the conditions of these lines, and we're missing those elevations and some pipe sizes. So we want to get all that information with these inspections so that we can prioritize our future investments, so we can be more proactive in the future. We can have that information to have a better understanding of what's needed for larger projects, and so that we can model the system to plan for any capacity issues in the future. And then finally, Program 4, these are increased capital construction projects. So this is primarily rehabilitation of the pipe system. So that means pipe lining. So these photos here on the left-hand side are just showing, sorry, these are not in your packet. These images were added later, but this is showing what it, before and after of pipe lining projects. So this is not, this doesn't involve any digging into the ground. It's basically like a slip liner goes in through the manholes and kind of creates a new pipe inside of the existing pipe. Replacement is an open cut construction. So this is basically digging into the ground and replacing the pipe entirely. So the estimates for these are the rehabilitation needs to occur on a 50-year cycle and replacement on a 125-year cycle. And like I noted before, we don't have ages of all of our systems, so these were estimates, and they're estimates done just using ages of the neighborhood and not actual condition data. So that those estimates went into this cost estimate for this program. All right, finally, our recommendation is that we are fully funding programs 1, 2, and 3. So that's our current program, that's continuing compliance with Illinois EPA permit, and providing system maintenance and repair on a more frequent cycle for cleaning and televising, continuing repairs of the critical parts of the system, and collecting that missing data. And with that data that we collect, we'll be more prepared to plan for rehabilitation and replacement projects in the future. Now, what does all of this cost? First, we'll start with the current funding. So the funding for our stormwater program comes entirely from the stormwater utility fee that was established in 2012. The current rate right now is $5.82 per month. It's a flat fee for single-family residential parcels and duplex parcels. All other property owners pay based on their impervious surface. So that's basically rooftops and pavements on their property. For every 3,100 square feet of imperviousness, they're paying $5.82 per month. So with this utility, we're bringing in around $1.7 million annually. And like I said before, our current program costs $1.9 million right now. So we have aspects of the program that have been added in the last 2 years that haven't been done in previous years, just because we've had a balance from the Stormwater Fund, from deferred programs from previous years where there were staff turnovers, there wasn't as much activity, so we've been able to start bringing down the balance by doing these additional programs. So why do we need to increase the fee then? So some more background on that 2011 feasibility study. In that study, there were recommendations that are very similar to what we're recommending today and that are listed in this box on the far left. However, that study estimated that a total number of ERUs that the city had was nearly 34,000. But our current ERU total, which I get from UCSD that does our billing for us, is less than $25,000. So with a difference there of 9,000 ERUs, that and a rate of about $5 per month, we're seeing a deficit of $500,000 a year approximately. So there wasn't the funding coming in once this fee was set up that was anticipated for the program. So the program hasn't been able to accomplish all of these activities that were recommended from the beginning of the utility fee. Some other issues, of course, there's inflation. The fee increases definitely did not keep up with inflation, and then when COVID hit, there were no fee increases happening until this year. Another more minor issue is that when the fee was set up, there were approximately 129 miles of storm sewer system, and the system has grown by about 16 miles now, so that just means there's more maintenance needs that did not exist then. And of course, there's the programmatic changes needed that I've discussed in the previous slides. So this bar graph I shared with all of you in our 2x2 meetings. So this just answers the question of how much it will cost for each of these different program pieces. So the bars on the left side of each of these topics or subjects is the current amount of funding that we have, and on the right side is how much we have, how much we need in order to have a more robust program. So again, I want to point out that program 4, that very large bar, is a result of estimates based on age. So that could change, that amount that we need could change based on the data that we get from doing program 3. Okay, so how does that impact our utility fee rate? The rates here shown in the graph and in the table and the bar graph are 5-year average rates. So what we're proposing that I'll show on the next slide is a graduated increase in rates. So starting at $8 and going up to $10.36. But the average for our proposed program is $9.29. And the average rate to fund each of these, and I'll point out that each of these are building upon each other. So the future permit requirement program, program 2, includes current program, or program 1. Our system maintenance and repair program 3 that we want to fully fund includes program 2. So our proposed program is fully funding our current program, the future permit requirement activities, and our system maintenance and repair activities. And then it's providing us some contingency so that we can start doing some of these rehabilitation and replacement programs without waiting until the end of our 5 years, that 5 years being up. We'll have some contingency there so we can start initiating those programs as we see that they are needed. This puts us in a place to be more proactive as we are completing program 3. All right, so some other key aspects of this program. We're proposing one rate per ERU for all property types. So our neighbors to the west have an elevated fee for their stormwater utility for the non-residential properties versus residential. So doing some analysis on one set revenue total, what it would mean for our fee. So if we did a 6% increase for that non-residential rate, how much of a decrease could we get for the residential properties? I'm seeing it's minimal, it's fairly insignificant. It's only about 40 cents per month at a rate of, $9.26, right, our average that we're proposing. And then I also want to note that our non-residential properties are already required to have stormwater management on their properties from our code. Another key aspect of this is that we are going to increase the rate gradually. We want to have the biggest increase in the beginning while we're talking about this and everyone's aware of it. We've done our public feedback initiatives. So we're going from $8 to $10.36 per month. And then we will reevaluate at year 5 to see if this is bringing in enough revenue for our program needs. And then finally, the other piece of the ordinance was that we want to charge based on the impervious area per parcel for everyone, for residential and non-residential properties. So we want to do this because it's more equitable than the flat fee for all residential properties. This keeps the rate, your fee, as low as possible for those who are living on small parcels and have very little impervious area. It just is the most accurate way to pay for how much stormwater is produced. So it's the most like any other utility that you would pay. So you're producing more stormwater, you should pay a higher fee. And it has a built-in incentive then for people to want to reduce their impervious area. So it's more of an incentive, or it's adding to our credits and incentives program. So people they want to pay a lower fee, you reduce your impervious area. And the way that we would do this is we would use GIS mapping. And, we've already done some analysis on this in-house just for this project, for this presentation, to determine, approximately what our average is for impervious areas. We would use the GIS maps to assess impervious area for residential parcels the same way we're doing for non-residential parcels. Okay, so I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but we had a postcard go out, and we'll talk about this with the public feedback. Postcard went out to all of our fee payers that showed this table here, this box of the different rates. So the lowest rate that we showed was this $8 per month, and we were going up all the way up to $27 per month. These are the preliminary costs, so these are not exactly what you saw on the previous slide, but when the postcards went out to everyone, this is where we were at in our analysis. So we are proposing the lowest rate to start with, and then we would have a graduated rate up to $10.36. So we're doing our fully funding the critical maintenance and repairs and preparing to do some rehabilitation and repairs. So again, this may be a little repetitive from before, but what work will be completed with this increased revenue? Again, we're going to maintain our permit compliance. We're going to perform necessary repairs. We're going to collect the data that is missing and get condition information that will inform future investments and close the gap on our missing data so we can model the system as well. Okay, so in our public feedback and in other meetings, people have asked, why can't we get the funding from other sources? And the simplest answer is that most of this needed funding is for operations and maintenance. It's for annual costs that are not shovel-ready projects. So it just does not qualify for most of these funds. So operations and maintenance costs are ineligible for the COVID relief funds like ARPA. And then for the IIJA, most of that money, well, all of the money that's available for stormwater work has gone into Clean Water State Revolving Fund. And Clean Water State Revolving Fund, that's the CWSRF, has historically gone primarily to wastewater projects. So you can see a very small amount has been given to stormwater work. So really there's very limited options available for stormwater, especially when you're looking for operations and maintenance funding. Okay, now last but not least, stakeholder engagement. We've really pushed hard to get the public engaged, to get a lot of feedback on this over the last several months. We had a public meeting in May, and frankly, we were disappointed in the turnout that we had from the public. So we put together this plan that included all of these activities here. So mostly want to point out that we put out we put out an online survey back in May after having the public meeting, and we saw very little feedback at that time. But once we did media interviews in June with WCIA, the News Gazette, and Fox, and then we put out a postcard to all of the the fee payers in Urbana, we saw huge increases in the survey response from those. So we put out over 7,000 postcards. They made it into mailboxes starting in early July. We saw over 500 survey responses, so that's approximately 7% response rate, which is really high for a mailer, and 40 direct communications, calls, emails, voicemail, et cetera, directly to Public Works or to UCSD to then forward it on to me. And the survey, I'll point out, was not set up to get the public to vote on what fee they wanted or if they preferred a certain fee or not. It was set up before we established those rates. So the survey was about all the programmatic aspects, what kinds of things are important to you, the repairs, the permit compliance, water quality, green infrastructure, et cetera. But then we left it open for comments at the end. So once the public saw those rates that we put on the postcard, we got a lot of write-in with support and opposition. So it was about 50-50, 50% opposed, 50% supportive or tolerant of the fee in their comments. The survey itself asked everyone to prioritize this list of activities or areas, programmatic activities here. And what we found from this basically was that in general, the survey respondents prioritized or valued the items that go into Program 3 the most. So it's in line with our recommendation here to focus on Program 3. My text is missing here. Oh, shoot. So you should see it in your in your program packet. It should be printed out in a blue box. So there were public feedback themes. Up on yours, don't know what happened there. So from this, I increased in text and went down the page. I'll send you guys a PDF when we're done with this. Just talking to the microphone. So what this is showing was that from the top to the bottom in your list in that box was what we saw the most comments on, down to the least. And all of these were, really popular themes here. So starting with taxes, so this open comment box gave people the opportunity to share that they don't like taxes in Urbana. They think they're too high. How dare you have any sort of fee increase? Then we saw a lot of people commenting on doing this graduated fee increase, which is what we're proposing. People commented on the need for relief for low and fixed income residents and seniors, as well as suggestion to charge based on the amount of impervious area. There were a number of comments how we should be proactive and prevent problems from happening. So that's really just doing everything. There's some people that said they would pay even more than $27 a month because this is so important. Then there were comments on other funding sources. Why not get grants? Why not get some of the COVID funds? And then finally, the last two on here were both related to green infrastructure. It was pretty 50-50 between people who felt very strongly in favor of green infrastructure and those who were opposed and thought we should do things that were more essential in their opinion. So I apologize, my slide did not work out here. Oh, what? It has, oh, didn't realize. There it is, okay. I'm not used to the fly-ins. I had someone put this one together for me, but yep. All right, moving on. So what are the risks if we don't fund this recommended program, if the recommended program is not implemented? Basically, we'll have inadequate investment for stormwater infrastructure. We may see the need for more reactive repairs. We'll still be in this reactionary mode, which means these costs could be more in the long run because it costs more to do emergency repairs than to plan for them and have projects that are planned in advance. And then we'll still have that missing data on our storm sewer system, so we can't adequately assess the capacity of our system for new development and for larger and more intense storm events. And, you know, we'll see more lines like these on the lower right, these images. These are storm sewers that are in need of complete replacement. And so finally, our recommended action is to fund programs 1 through 3, our current program, continue EPA compliance, and do this increased maintenance and repair at a rate of $8 a month, going up to $10.36 per month over 5 years. And we plan to improve maintenance, collect our critical data, and prioritize system investment for the next 5 years. Okay, thanks.
I just want to say one quick thing. Just the big picture of this is we're trying to get better information and make better decisions. You know, what we found is we still need better information. So that big gap that we saw in the capital, that could be a real number at some point. But based on our feedback and stuff, we didn't think that it was prudent to jump right there without having identified needs yet. So we wanted to focus on the 5 years, and within 5 years, we'll probably be coming back to talk about what that capital gap really is. So that's all I wanted to add.
Great, thank you. Questions? We have James.
Thank you for that extensive report. And I do appreciate the graduated increase over time. I do appreciate the charging based on impervious area. I'm not sure, maybe you could give me a little more explanation. When you talk about deciding how we're going to bill people, being based on GIS information, is that informed by satellite imagery or aerial photography? How is that going to be figured out?
So I included an extra slide here to show what it looks like in our GIS program right now. This is preliminary, so this is not perfect, but it's pretty good. The blue areas are the impervious areas using aerial imagery. So it's just software that assesses what's impervious based on the color of the image. And then, you know, this pops out an area with each parcel, and we send that to UCSD, and they charge per month.
So if I have a sidewalk, a city sidewalk running across my front yard, is that going to be included or not included?
I would say that depends on if it's within your parcel or not. So if we had a typically the sidewalk is within a right of way, so it's outside of your actual parcel.
Okay. So if it's in the right of way, it won't.
Correct. It's atypical.
For my driveway too?
Your driveway that's within your parcel is yours. Within like the access drive, the actual mouth there is not yours. Like that's what you'll see here is everything kind of stops at the back of sidewalk there.
Right.
That's that's very typical. I just wanted to say, you know, sometimes atypically people have a sidewalk running through the yard with an easement that would get picked up in this.
All right. So when I see my bill for what my impervious amount is, and I go and I tear out my patio and put in a permeable surface, do we have a plan for the process that a homeowner comes and
Contest that.
negotiates what their impervious area is? Because that's something we're not doing right now, right? We've got the very
Correct.
simple, straightforward model, except for maybe the commercial areas.
Right.
But for homeowners, you could see, you know, people are going to do this, right? And that's great. If they change their permeable surfaces or impermeable to permeable, that's great. But do you have a plan for the customer service requirements of that?
Yeah. So that's one thing we're cognizant of. That's why the way that it's written right now is it gives us the option to move towards that when we feel like we're ready. We want to do that. That could very well happen in the next 6 months, but we didn't want to handcuff ourselves into making sure we had that all well vetted. The instance is right now, they would still be charged based on whatever that ERU is, which right now the ERU is 3,100. So even when we go over to the other system, the ERU is in tenths of an ERU. So you'd have to change it by for 3,100 feet, you'd have to change it by more than 310 feet to have a possible reduction.
But I'm sure we have a lot of homes in areas that can't afford this increase, that are smaller, that have areas that are smaller than 3,100 and smaller by 300 or more chunks, right?
Yep. Well, and I think
That's what we need to get to as soon as we can.
Yeah, and that's what we intend to do, but we want to make sure we do it well. We want to make sure we have basically a review set up in place for those instances. But once we move to that, it's not a perfect system, but typically the smaller homesteads are just going to pay less. And that's going to come just from auto-generated stuff like this is, if you have a massive driveway and house and you have 20,000 square feet of impervious area on your lot, you're going to actually pay more and other people are going to pay less. And that's going to come out of our initial thing here. And then from this, people will still be able to contest this. Technology is not 100% perfect. We know that. But the idea is we're not going to roll that out until we've got kind of that metric figured out for that. So we'll continue to charge by ERU. If we get things all done, we'll probably talk about flipping that switch once we have that stuff put together. It could very well be in the next few months, but we don't want to handcuff ourselves, so we've written it in a way that allows us to switch to that when we have that system better set up.
Does going to the $8 rate require us to have that system in place?
No.
Because that's something I would ask that we do. That before we start raising the rate to $8, we know which homes will get a decrease in the longer term, because those are the ones that are going to feel the impact of this, not somebody with a 6-car garage. And
Right, so I did a analysis from, the mapping that we have so far, and I saw going up to this, it was $9.26 average rate, that approximately 1,000 parcels would see a decrease in their current rate, even at this elevated rate based on this new mapping system.
okay, I would just recommend that we not start the new rate until we have the graduated or the measure your size capability in place.
Sure.
Hugh, other questions? Yes, Chris?
Okay. Some ignorant dreamer questions. Is there a way to, how do I do this? Is there kind of a flooding history kept track of to kind of assess what the quality of our pipes are? Like,
I'll tell you, our data is not as good as it should be, i.e. GIS enhancements. But
Yeah.
over time, we intend to do that. We've got work management software where people call in with flooding issues and things like that we'll start mapping. We do have some of that mapped. We do have some historical data, but we don't have logic built in with that stuff to kind of show us like where, eventually that's what we want that GIS for, so we can identify recurring flooding areas and say, we shouldn't keep throwing Band-Aids on this thing, we should go do a project there.
yeah.
But we don't have the data organized in a way to keep us well informed on that without doing a lot of analysis.
And the increase of pipes from 78 miles to 145 miles, is that caused by developers developing on the periphery of the city?
Generally, that's how it occurs. Our infrastructure grows with development.
Okay, thank you.
And that 75 was back in 1980.
Other questions? Yes, Chandra?
So basically, the catastrophic failures is flooding. Is that the only, if the pipes, those pictures, it showed the underpass flooded, and then those other two pipes, would that just cause flooding?
I would say, other catastrophic failures that you would consider is when you have these pipe failures and they just continue to consume soil over time, you get big sinkholes that are potentially in very inopportune places, like a very busy intersection. You get a 10 by 10 sinkhole that's two things, very dangerous and then very costly to try to mobilize and repair quickly. And then you take a major intersection potentially out at those times. So that's another big critical failure. Flooding's a big one. Water quality contamination, major oil spills, things like that, if they're not contained and things like that, and we don't have good systems to catch those things and capture them in detention and things like that. That could be another semi-catastrophic failure, which typically if you have some major environmental issue, where it can't be recouped, it can't be cleaned, people just get extremely hefty fines from IEPA and those type of things. So we want to try to, demonstrate to them that we are doing the best we can with things. It's not that things don't happen, but that could be another example of kind of a critical failure.
I think it's important to let people know what the consequences of not investing in our stormwater infrastructure. Thank you.
Yes, Mary Alice?
I'm wondering what your time frame is. If this was to pass, when would people see an increase in their rates?
So the earliest would be January 2024.
Thank you.
That's what we wrote in the ordinance.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And I have a few. I hope they're quick. They can be quick or say, we'll get back to you. Just curious how the number of residential units was incorrectly estimated in 2011. Like, isn't that a known number of residential properties?
So the idea at the time was you had to take a sample size. You know, you had to kind of do analysis without doing full analysis of every parcel at the time. So they took a sample size. They generated the 3,100 ERUs. They looked at commercial properties, and you know, the other parts of that is, you know, potentially there were misestimates. I'm not sure. I wasn't present for it. That's something that we actually just discovered within the last month or so, that there was this kind of substantial overestimate from what was true. And what happened at the time, based on my research, was, you know, okay, we thought we were going to get X amount of dollars, we got Y. And what they did is they shrunk programs down. You know, they had planned to do a lot of capital expenditures and things like that, and those just got put on the back burner, just like they are kind of with these programs. Is we want to do that, but we got to kind of take care of the day-to-day stuff before we start doing that stuff, unless it's catastrophic. But I don't have a perfectly good justification for why that estimate was so off, unless you have a better one.
I do, but I had a slide. I thought I had the extra slide for that one. But so in the 2011 feasibility study, they estimated ERUs just based on land use area, and they only looked at a certain number of properties per land use area and then said, this is how much impervious area is on all of these different categories. So they overestimated in every single category. You know, we broke it down by government, by residential, by university, and their estimates were much larger than ours in every category. And then when the revenue came back in 2013, it just wasn't what was estimated because those ERUs were too small.
Thank you. And do enterprise zones or TIFs or anything like that play into it? Are they exempt from a stormwater utility fee in any of those areas?
No one is exempt from the utility fee.
Cool, thank you. And, okay, and so this is starting, this resolution is requesting for us to approve, starting in January 1st, 2024, the $8 per month. And just that, this does not include the increase over 5 years. This is just the $8, correct?
Correct. We would intend to be present during the fee schedule with the budget cycle every year on that stuff, and work with finance to make sure that this rate schedule was kind of the recommendation in the fee schedule to you. So you'd see it in the fee schedule. You wouldn't see a standalone thing for the stormwater utility fee like this.
Thank you. And so right now, every residential, single-family or duplex is under one ERU currently, right? And that's what this resolution is saying, that would still be the case until the city establishes the measurements for impervious area, right? And you're saying that some households might even have a decrease in fee. So I guess my question and just a little context here is there a necessity for us to increase the fee and pass this now before we figure out that cost? Because hypothetically, someone's bill would go from $5.82 to $8 and then maybe back down to like $4.50 a month. And it's just kind of all over the place. Like, do we need to increase this fee for the administrative cost of finishing the GIS, or could we finish the GIS and figure out defining the ERUs accurately first, and then also maybe avoid some of that problem from 2011 because we're setting this, and I'm glad if you have some estimates, but I don't know how much we know what the actual breakdown when we break down an REU into fractions.
We know what the ERUs are now from UCSD. What we don't know is the exact numbers from the parcels, but using the mapping that we've done so far, I'm seeing that the average is still the same as it was in 2011. The 3,100 square feet is still the average. If anything, we are underestimating the number of ERUs because Those three that I showed you are looking really good in the maps. They were just picked from 3 different parts of the city. But then I requested that our stormwater engineering technician look at my property, and I have a lot of trees, and it's definitely underestimating the amount of impervious surface on my property. So we're likely seeing a greater number of ERUs once we finish those maps than what we have now. I would say, yes, we do need the fee increase even without doing the mapping, but we could get the map established by January. We could do both of these together, and the ordinance, I don't know if the ordinance doesn't force us to do that, but I think we are capable of doing that. And I don't think anyone would have a problem with their fee going down. Like if they're paying the $8 and then they see a drop later, I don't think we're gonna get any complaints about that.
I don't think they would complain about it dropping down below that. I think they would complain about it going up to 8 for however many months it takes us to figure it out, and then going down, and just seems a little confusing.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like anything. Like, we're not asking, like, at the end of the day, this is not going to be the long-term sustainable solution. This is a step. That's why in 5 years, we're going to be talking about the bigger gap in the capital at some point. So we could delay it. We could do it, but, you know, every time we delay it, it just pushes other things up later. You know, the question came up. We talked about this very intensively because it was like, do we think we can get that done in the next 4 months? And Carmen says, yes. I said, oh, I don't know. I'm scared. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. I don't know. I mean, we could certainly try to prioritize that over other things, but we've just got a lot of irons in the fire. Hopefully we have new staff coming on that's helping with us some of that, but that's not a shoe-in yet, so.
Well, we wouldn't be the only municipality to do this. I mean, CMT has worked with Peoria that established their impervious, their stormwater utility rate based on impervious area as well. And we reached out to the company that put those maps together for them. They no longer do that. They were bought out by a IA company or AI company that is larger, but we're getting a cost estimate for that. I think that the software is there, it's available, and we can do it internally, and if we find that we can't, I don't think the cost is gonna be too burdensome that we can't hire someone else to help us with those maps.
So it sounds like, to clarify, you're saying that it would be possible to have that all figured out by January 1st when this goes out, right? And I don't know if you have a sense if you feel confident enough to make that worded in here or come back with this, or I don't know how comfortable you feel committing to that in any creative solution here.
I would say maybe we should get that estimate back before we say that, because outsourcing it's one thing, then you still have to kind of do our own quality assurances of those things, build our potential review program, some other things like that. It's not that it can't be done. I think maybe we need to see what that cost is to have that done first. And, you know, long term, it's imperfect. Our technology is just better now, so we should be closer, you know, from this rendition. So hopefully there's less, you know, complaints. Now there are going to be people that their costs go up too when they have 20,000 square feet. That's why I do think it'll be important to make sure we have our kind of program in place for people to, you know, verify those type of things.
Thank you. Mary Alice?
Is there a reason why we could change the date to, say, April 1st to allow you a little bit more time to get this in place? Or is there something with billing that?
Yeah. Yes, there's something. Our agreement with UCSD typically is they only change the rates on January 1. So that's part of it. So it's January 1, 2024, or probably January 1, 2025.
I guess I'd ask them if they'd be willing to let us delay it, but I don't know what their software does, so.
I think that's one of the handicaps right now. Some of their software is not really quite as capable as we would like it, and probably them. But I think that's been discussed in the past, and that's something that we have agreed upon. We can certainly reach out to them, but it didn't sound like that was going to be on the table necessarily.
Yeah, I did discuss with some folks at UCSD, and they are updating their software in November, I believe. So I'm communicating with them about what kind of effort it would take to change all of the parcel ERUs. our agreement says that they would do it for us though, and we pay them 3% of the revenue that comes in order for them to do our billing.
Yes, James. So we'll go James, then back to Chris. Sorry.
All right, so let me see if I've got this straight here. We're not sure if we can do the billing based on how much you have by January 1st. So we're looking at,
I said we can.
it might be possible, might not be possible. If we don't, everybody, and we approve this, everybody's rate goes to $8 on January 1st, and we can't fix that with the information that we generate later until January 1st the next year?
No, that's actually not true. The way that the agreement is worded, you can make adjustments to people's ERUs. It's only the rate, that rate per ERU. So the rate per ERU would not change throughout the calendar year if we changed our mapping. It would just change per parcels. Just like any commercial property can reach out to us and say, hey, I've reduced my impervious area. We work with UCSD to make that change right away. They do it as soon as it happens.
Okay, thank you. That helps.
Yes, Chris.
Yeah, I think, thinking about the 50-50 split of the public, acceptance of this fee, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like what the public saw was 8, 17, and 27. And they didn't see 8 and this gradual to 1039. And so I guess my question or advice would be, can we somehow inform them that we're doing this 5-year increment to 1039? And then we're going to have to prepare them for the possibility, again, with better information that you'll have by then, what the big jump in rate might have to be later. But
Yes, so with all of the respondents to the survey, I've been working on a frequently asked questions list to share with them, since I have their email addresses from them submitting the surveys online. It hasn't gone out yet, but I was hoping to send that this week, and that would provide this information about the rate that we're actually proposing, which I think we would actually see a lot more tolerance and support of that, because a lot of the respondents were just angry about the $27, because that's all they heard in the WCIA story, the Fox story, the News Gazette story was saying that we have the potential to go up to $27. We weren't even discussing those lower rates before because we hadn't established those yet. So we got their attention with the $27 and we still saw 84 supportive or tolerant of a fee increase even at that.
well, you've done an excellent job explaining, why we're doing this in so many different ways and for so many different reasons. But and even in the two by two meetings, the 27 just freaked me out too. So I think if you communicate, hey, your bill's going up to 8, but in the next 4 years it's only going to do this, and again try to do the great job you've done here to consolidate kind of that. And here's why we're doing kind of a bullet, the way you've done it, just here are the key reasons why we're doing this. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Entertain a motion.
I'll move ordinance number 2023-08-031, an ordinance amending section 24-172 of the Urbana City Code and the schedule of fees pertaining to the stormwater utility fee onto City Council with recommendation for approval on the regular agenda.
Thank you. Take a second.
Second?
You moved by Chandra, seconded by James for approval on the regular agenda. Do we have discussion? Mary Alice?
I just asked staff if you could follow up with the billing in terms of whether or not they would be open to us doing something in April. And then also coming back and giving us a little bit firmer idea in terms of how quickly the software to review the square footage would be. Thank you.
Other discussion? Yes, Jaya?
Yeah, I would also like to see this where it was based off of the impervious area, so that we're not potentially charging residents who are most vulnerable to this increase. I love that that's built in, but even a few months of that higher rate could have an impact on folks. So that I would be in favor of moving this forward with that piece. I think we do need that information of, are we, is January the only option? But I would like to see this move forward based off of that, not just a flat rate.
Discussion? Chandra, do you mind taking the chair again just a second?
Sure, Chair recognizes Grace.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with some of the discussion been said here. I don't like, in general, increasing fees, and it seems like a lot of the public doesn't either. But I definitely see the need for this and importance, and having other communities close to me, having experienced catastrophic flooding a year ago, and it is, yeah, I mean, we're talking loss of lives and loss of livelihood and entire homes and costs beyond measure here. So I think that it's really important to avoid that, and I support investing in things like this. And also just to note for people who are, the survey respondent saying that the property taxes are too high, just to remind people again that we get a small amount of that and that the city hasn't raised our rate for taxes in years, and trying to do things on, most efficient minimal budget. So I think this does make sense, and the average household, going from that $582 to $8 a year is an extra $26 a year, which has an impact on some more than others, definitely understand. But I don't think it's one of the largest increases, unfortunately, with a lot of costs all going up everywhere. And I definitely support doing the mapping and getting an accurate fraction of the ERUs before doing this. So yeah, I feel like this resolution is a little putting the cart before the horse, because that's a big unknown. It's kind of hard for me to decide to vote yes or no to this if for me it depends on if we have that done on time, and we don't know that at this point. So yeah, I definitely would like to have that, and I'm not sure how I feel about passing this now preemptively before we know which way it's going to go. And I think that's all I needed to say before I'll take the chair back.
I relinquish the chair. Back to Grace.
Thank you. Any last discussion? Okay, then, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Miss Wu,
Yes.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Miss Colasetti,
Yes.
Miss Bishop,
Yes.
Miss Wilkin,
No.
Mr. Quisenberry.
Yes.
Thank you, that passes. And our last item of business is council input and communication. Any input from council? Yes, Mary Alice.
I just wanted to thank the staff members of See You at Home and all the people who came out for the meeting last Thursday. I thought it was a good conversation. Lots of interesting ideas, lots of questions answered, and so I was really pleased to see the turnout for that meeting.
Chris.
Yeah, I just want to second Alderperson Wu's observation. It was a good meeting. We did have good discussion. I want to thank the mayor. I want to thank Braden Belcher and Kimberly Smith from the Community Development Department for getting that organized. And I want to thank See You at Home staff who answered a lot of questions, and hopefully we can keep the dialogue going. And this project will be something that Urbana can be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council input? I'd say thank you for bearing with me tonight, being a little rusty as chair. Thank you for the help along the way. And with no other last call for council input, we are adjourned. Thank you.